This is still weird though, because I'm looking at you, but you've looked at the screen. I'm looking weirdly, aren't I?
Whatever. Look, when do we not look weird?
This is the first time. Bloody hell.
Oh boy. Okay, hey, we are recording.
Are you able to? I can't get out of here. You need to get that can and those glasses. Hey, what are you drinking over there, Chris?
I'm drinking a break shot from Torch and Crown Brewing in New York City. Nice. It's a IPA, 6.9%.
Nice.
Nice.
I actually hadn't read the description on the can until just now. It's our head brewer Joe. Oh no! That's the thing. It's not a description of the beer at all. That's the best part. I love this. Like Torch and Crown occasionally puts a description of their beer on their can, but sometimes it's just shit like this. Our head brewer Joe loves beer. He loves shooting some stick too. His sense of direction in the city relies primarily on the location of bars with pool tables. If you see him out there, feel free to say hi and then take all his money. Pretty good copy.
That's cool.
Pretty good copy.
I like that.
Credit to the marketing director of Torch and Crown who probably came up with that, and I know him personally. So
hey,
you're gonna fuck around with the camera the whole time.
Well, no for the show. These cables that are like wound. They're very what would you call it?
Wound tightly.
Well, I tell you what, he's here all week. Good night, folks. No, it's
look. If you brought me beer earlier, I'd be in a much better mood,
bro. I didn't know what I was walking into.
I looked up. So there's you see the glass behind Nigel, right? So I'm on the far side of the room from that. I look up and he's just standing there with the wide eyes, like, "What the fuck are you doing?" Because I was yelling at people,
and the door was cracked open, and I walked, and he was yelling.
To be fair, I was letting people in this meeting feel my wrath.
Did you kind of Nigel? Did you kind of do the like Homer Simpson like back into the bush kind of thing? After
He wasn't quite there, but I think it could have happened.
I was like, I probably shouldn't go in there right now. Anyway, we're drinking.
What are we drinking?
This is Crowns and Hops 8 Trill Pils.
It is fantastic.
Yeah, I just found out they could ship to Missouri, so I immediately bought a case of beer. Yeah, so shout out to the folks at Crowns and Hops. Anyway,
this is one of my favorite stories to tell. Like, here's a brewery. They don't have actual space.
No, not yet.
They're an incredible brand.
Yes.
They don't have a space, but you can get them at SoFi Stadium.
Yeah, which is crazy.
Yeah.
What the hell?
Yeah.
Well, you know what? And the thing is, like, that happened a lot in New York. I mean, it still happens in New York now. There are a lot of brands that started as either contract brewers or tenant brewers here and grew into their own space. And, I mean, there's at least a dozen breweries in the New York City area that started that way. And, the reason they were able to do that, and it's the same with those guys out in LA, is that, they contracted on a system that's large enough for them to have that kind of scale. And if they're doing, just a couple beers and doing them really well, then they can get them out there and get wide distribution. And, it's going to help them down the road, because it's also marketing for whatever future brick and mortar, they have. So
the brand is already strong by the time they have brick and mortar.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, that with Brooklyn Brewery started that way. The oldest brewery in New York City right now, it started just like that. Bronx Brewery started that way.
The Godfather.
Of course.
Yeah. I guess we've already started the show.
Should I do the thing?
Let's do the thing.
You want me to do the thing?
Yeah, do the standby, Chris.
All right, we'll be back in 36 seconds.
Beers with Nigel is poured for you by Dire Oil Graphics, promotional products and design. They cover your brand bumper to bumper with graphic design, promo products, and print. See what Dire Oil Graphics can build for you at direoil.com. That's DYEROIL.
Hey, welcome to Beers with Nigel. I'm Nigel.
I'm that other guy.
That's Nick over there. So it's a show about beer and other stuff.
Other things.
And obviously, we've already started. If you're listening, what do you call that? A super tease? Somebody was talking about.
I like the use of the word super.
And tease.
Cold open, maybe?
Yeah.
Which also has, this is also a cold open. It's,
I see what you did there.
Welcome to the show, Chris O'Leary, a.k.a. Brew York. What's up, dude?
How are you?
We're lovely.
It's good to finally play.
Look,
that was strong.
Yeah, he doesn't normally burp very often.
And Nigel usually hates my burps.
That was pretty strong. But then again, you just came from a what kind of meeting was it?
I serve on a board of directors for a local social service.
You look like nobody's board of directors of anything.
I was coming hot.
Crazy phrasing. Okay. Anyway,
let's talk about beer.
Yeah,
and other things.
And we will. Chris, bro. So first time I met you, shout out to Cody Holyoke, esteemed reporter at KNBC Channel 9 in Kansas City.
Those TV guys are okay.
Yeah, but that's not your claim to fame. Let's not confuse the folks with and Cody. Okay? You have the most prolific beer travel itinerary history of anybody, and I know a lot of people in beer. You are what would you call it? I don't know what would you call yourself? How would you describe Chris O'Leary, the beer guy?
Beer tourist extraordinaire. I've never actually really pinned myself down in terms of a description, but
brand yourself, sir.
Well, Brew York, I guess, but I go to a lot of breweries. I mean, it's really been a labor of love. It started with just I would go on a trip and be like, oh, let me visit a couple of breweries while I'm here, and then some trips turned into let me just visit breweries while I'm here, and especially in cities like not long when I was going to places like Portland and San Diego and Denver and places where you could go to breweries for a week straight and still not even scratch the surface. But you caught me. In fact, I almost want to look this up to be like, when did I can actually pinpoint exactly what brewery number I met you for the first time at.
Yeah, I can tell you the brewery.
I bet you can. I'm looking it up right now. You were there.
It was
I was hoping you were there because the brewery I met you. I was hoping one of you would say, "Well, I was actually there."
It was Windshift.
It was Windshift, and it was brewery
Shout
number.
out to Tony.
Yeah, that place was really cool, and just such a cool just like a cool space, like we drove up to it, and I'm like, Cody, where are you taking me?
That's fair.
This is a car repair shop.
Yeah.
That was brewery number 2,476.
Wow.
That was what, a year and 4 months ago, probably. It was no, you know what? It was fall actually of last year. It was about 13 months ago. And now I'm on brewery number 2,859.
Yeah.
So I've done a little short of, I've done about 365 breweries in the last 365 days.
Because
at what point did you decide to say, I'm going to start counting?
Yeah.
I was so actually I can pinpoint the exact moment. It was when it was November of, I think, 2011. I was sitting at a brewery in Rhode Island where I grew up, and I was home over Thanksgiving. And I had been to Portland earlier in that month and to San Francisco like week after that, and then went to Rhode Island at the end of the month. And I was like, you know what? I think I've been to like 30 breweries in 30 days. And I went and did the math on it. And I'm like,
That's awesome.
I've been to 29 breweries in 30 days. I'm like, I have to go to one more. So I found another brewery in Rhode Island that I had never been to. And that was when I like, at that point, I just started keeping count, created a spreadsheet for it and a map. So, you know, I share the map. It's just a Google map, but it just plots out all the breweries I've been to. And, you know, it was only, I mean, that was, you know, over 10 years ago. And it was only about 2 years ago during the pandemic that I decided, you know what, I should probably write about all these other breweries I've been to and not just write about the ones in New York, which is something I've been doing for almost 15 years now, writing about the New York beer scene. So, that was kind of how it all started. And 2,800 plus breweries later, still going strong.
So let's go back, because we always have to ask this question on this podcast about, you know, everybody has that moment where they were drinking crap or whatever, and then there was something that turned them on to craft beer.
They were drinking macro.
Is that wow? Macro.
You got to say it like that. Macro.
So what were you drinking previously, and what was? Do you remember the beer that was like, oh my god, this is different than stuff that I've been drinking before? Do you remember that? You probably do. You got spreadsheets.
Oh, I don't have a spreadsheet for my gateway beer, but I can, if there was, I would say it's hard to pinpoint one, but I would say there's a Mount Rushmore of gateway beers for me.
Sure.
And that is Brooklyn Lager.
Okay.
Embarrassingly, Sea Dog Blueberry Wheat.
Wow, that's old school.
That's a throwback. Yeah. Magic Hat number 9.
Oh wow, yeah.
And the fourth one is Ithaca Nut Brown. Because I went to college in Ithaca, New York, and Nut Brown was one of my gateway beers. That was at the college bar. A mug of Labatt was like $3.25, and a mug of Ithaca Nut Brown was $3.50. So I was like, let me spring the extra quarter, and get something that actually tastes like something. And of course, on 3-for-1 nights, that meant I got 3 Nut Browns for the price of one.
You didn't have the 75-cent fish bowls of PBR.
Fish bowls of PBR.
In college, we had a bar that had 75-cent fish bowls of PBR.
So I lived in Burlington, Vermont for a while, and there was a bar there that served $5 pitchers of Labatt Blue on Friday nights from 5 to 8. And they also had free wings. The thing was, the pitchers were, it was, I mean, it was otherworldly. Like, it's like,
I would make them pay for that decision.
Yeah. So the thing was, in Vermont, the law was you couldn't serve more than one drink to one person. So you couldn't legally sell a pitcher to someone with glasses. So they just handed out 48-ounce pitchers of beer that you held in your hand and drank out of.
Yeah. There's a place in Kansas City that does that, actually. It's kind of epic.
Really?
Yes.
I don't know about this place.
Yeah. It's If you want a pitcher of beer, I mean, no, you don't. And it's not like they're doing good beer.
No.
Right.
It's just a pitcher of Labatt and free wings, though. Like,
it's a free wings guy.
Like at 20 years old, right? You know what I mean? At 19, 20, you're in college. You're going to give me a pitcher of beer for $5 and a plate of free wings.
Yeah.
I'm eating there every chance that I can.
Yeah.
Did I mention they were unlimited free wings? They just keep bringing them out in like baskets. They just bring them out. Yeah.
Like, I would have taken it personally. Like, it would have been my duty to make them regret that decision.
You said duty. Speaking of beer, I know we're just a few minutes into the show, but I'm out of beer and I'm in a landlocked position. So, Chris, we have what we call mystery beers.
Mystery beer.
You're not going to play the thing?
I don't know if it'll transfer over.
Let's see if it'll do it.
Let's just give it a shot.
Yeah, why would
we'll just keep babbling.
I got a terrible producer.
I know he's a piece of shit, but let's try this.
Could you hear that, Chris?
I could, yeah.
Yeah, that's shout out to Bree Burrows, head brewer, part owner at Big Rip. She came on the show and kept doing that, and now it's a drop. So anyway, so here's the mystery beer bag. As you might imagine, it came from a golf course, right? It's an unnamed golf course, but it's a mystery beer bag. And so when we started this almost 3 years ago,
holy shit.
Yeah, it'll be 3 years in like 3 months, bro.
Damn it.
Yeah. So when we started this, Nick was more of a whiskey guy. And so we would show up on the podcast, and he would pull beers out. We need to get back to that. We used to do a brown paper bag to keep it classy, but I haven't had a brown paper.
Nigel hasn't been classy for a while.
I'll drinking on the New York City subway style.
Yeah. So, or the stoop, whatever.
So, Nick, you want to come get a mystery beer?
All right, well, I'm going to have to. You're landlocked. I'm tethered.
That's very phrasing. Is that a beer name? Landlocked and tethered.
Landlocked and tethered. Next collab, that's what we're using.
Okay, there you go. Well, just come over and get that. So Chris, riddle me this. Mm-hmm. When did you say you've been writing about New York City beer for like 15 years?
Almost 15 years. It'll be 15 years next year. Started in 2008.
So what? I'm curious. 15 years ago here in Kansas City, there was nothing. There was Boulevard. Mm-hmm. That was it. What was the New York beer scene like 15 years ago? And what inspired you to be like, I'm going to write about this beer scene?
So 15 years ago, there were 4 breweries in New York City. Brooklyn, 6 Point, Chelsea, and this place called Greenpoint Beer Works, which was basically the contract facility for Heartland Brewing Company, which was a chain of brew pubs here in New York City. The reason I started writing about beer had nothing to do with the breweries at the time. It had to do with the beer bar scene here, because New York City was better known as a great destination for drinking beer, but not a great destination for where beer is brewed. And so that's how I ended up writing about it. I wanted to find out where like great events were happening. I wanted to write about, new beer bars that were opening. I wanted to write about new breweries that were launching in New York City, launching distribution in New York City. So that was what inspired me to write about beer here. And it wasn't until 2012 that we got our first new brewery. 2011, sorry, that we got our first new brewery in New York City since I started writing, and that was Rockaway. Then came Single Cut quickly after that, and then it was off to the races. Now we have more than 50 breweries in New York City. So.
He's not on the podcast anymore.
My camera went bye-bye.
No, he's back.
Welcome back.
I thought he left. I'm out. Yes. So what do we got over there, Nick?
Look, I'm a little excited about this.
Yeah.
Raspberry cheesecake and chill.
Yeah.
Raspberry cheesecake inspired milkshake triple IPA from
Turning Point Beer
from Texas.
Bedford, Texas.
Well, you didn't even need me.
Well,
you don't need me anymore, Nigel.
Only reason that's one of my favorite breweries in Dallas is Turning Point. They just do. The last time I went there, I think they have 34 taps, and like 27 are all IPAs.
Naturally.
I feel like that's somewhere.
Yeah, probably. So we play a game on this show. It's a triple IPA. I don't remember what the ABV is. We like to guess the ABV.
That's lovely.
You heard the description. What would your guess be on the ABV there, Chris? If you could smell it and taste it.
I'm guessing in the 10% range.
What would you say? He just broke out the flashlight.
I totally did.
One of these days, we're gonna have some Beers with Nigel branded readers for the show.
I'm wearing glasses. It didn't help.
To your point, that some of these breweries, I'm like, okay, I love your artwork, but good Lord, can we? The fonts can't be that small.
No, and this is pink on purple.
Yeah.
Fair.
How you doing?
How's your mama doing?
How you doing?
Fake on purple.
Look, I looked, so I can't guess. Nigel?
10-2.
Ding, ding, ding. Exactly.
10-2?
It's a 10-2.
Yeah. If you were here in studio, whoever wins,
you get to finish the can.
You get to finish the can.
Oh God, I'm grateful I didn't. Can I tell you something about? Can I tell you something about Turning Point? I can tell you where I had my first ever Turning Point beer.
Really?
And
where?
You'll be shocked. You will be shocked.
Okay.
British Columbia.
Well, you got the first word. You were close on the first word.
Okay.
I was in Hackney in London. Because there's a distributor, there's an importer in the UK that has started to specialize in importing beer from Texas. And that was one of the first breweries they brought in. And I was like, I've never even heard of her.
That's awesome.
That's the most random thing I've ever heard. Oh, we're going to import beer from Texas.
Yeah.
How crazy is that?
I met one of the guys and he was like, what other breweries do you like from Texas? And I'm like, I've got a few, and I rattled off a few, but he was really excited about Turning Point, and I had like a Bach or something. He was only bringing in their lagers because that he was worried about the IPAs sitting in port or whatever as they ship them over. So
now we have learned you can ship IPAs across the pond.
Shout out to Rock Leopard Brewing, Stacy.
Boy Stacy.
Yeah. So when he came on the show during the pandemic, he's like,
he had a rule.
He was like, mate, I want to come on the show, but I'm going to send you some beer. So he IPAs. It took like 6 weeks. They were still cold. Yeah, fun fact with Stacey.
Look, I'm pretty sure that he used an entire roll of packing tape.
Oh, it was the most beautiful
incredible
packing job ever, Chris. It was beautiful. But the fun thing was, over the last couple of years, we've been talking to him. He came his first time in the United States. He comes to Barrel and Flow Fest in Pittsburgh, and we roll up to the hotel where everybody's staying,
and he's right there.
And he's outside. I'm like, there's Stacy, and then we've never met him in person, but it was cool to hang out and you're a beer guy. The beer community can be so fucking unique and
random, but awesome.
Random.
Yeah.
That's a beer name. Random, but awesome.
So it's even random in the fact that like I happened to walk into a brewery in Missouri and just run into you twice.
Yeah. Well, that's right. He came to the Pine Tree Plaza. Grayson, Texas. He sure did. Yeah, on this.
Like, well,
it was.
In fact, that was right before you went to Barrel and Flow. So that was.
Yeah.
You were prepping for that trip. Yeah.
Yeah, it was meant to be, Chris.
That was a fun road trip.
It was meant to be.
Do I need to play a love song? I wish I had one on cue.
It looked fun.
Yeah. Oh, bro. You should totally come. It's such a unique beer fest. It's the most multicultural one I've ever been to. But it's
it's a family reunion around beer
with a vibe.
Yeah.
Shout out to Ed and Dave from the Drinking Partners. So what was it about beer that got you to like want to start writing about beer? Are you a writer? Is that your day job? You're a writer? What's your background?
No, actually, so I work in marketing and advertising as my day job, but in college, I did a lot in journalism. I was a broadcast journalist in college.
Same.
I'm sorry. I hate even saying this because I swear I'm not tooting my own horn.
He's a newspaper guy. He sucks.
Okay, fair.
I mean, like I'm where the righteous go.
Really?
I hate even saying this, but in a previous life, I was very briefly a award-winning broadcast journalist. That's why I know Cody Holyoke, because we attended the same college, and we had a TV station that we both worked for and reported.
What did you do? You're a reporter?
I was a reporter, and the funny thing is the story that won me the award was literally just a story about a snowstorm. It's one of those stupid things where you just like, the news director sends you out and they're just like, go out and cover the snowstorm. And I'm like, all right, what the hell am I going to do here? And I end up making a story about it. Sled down a hill with kids at the end of the story, and that's
an award winner.
Yeah. So
those are always the ones where you just gotta make some shit up because we got, like I got a news hole to fill.
So Chris, same. Former reporter, former sports anchor, former photog,
are you really
former editor.
I call you a former.
There you go.
I don't know what you.
Look, my first news story, and I still have the tape. It was the
quarter-inch tape.
What's your point?
You're old.
You know what? It was still a story, and it was on the telly. Okay,
we had moved on to some other type of, I can't remember the tape, right? Mini DV.
Yeah. So my first story was I was a one-man band in Tyler, Texas, and the first story I ever did was the first time the lottery came to Texas, and I went to this gas station and talked to random folks, and that was 1992. And I have that reel, and I watched that story, and the people I found at that little country gas station down south of Jacksonville, Texas, boy.
It's the stuff that like memes are made of.
Oh, absolutely. The Texas lottery, baby.
That's awesome.
Well, that's funny. Sometimes we run into people on this podcast. They're like, "Oh, it has to be this, that, and the other." Have we ever come across a former reporter? I don't think so.
We've had some former journalists. We have Pete Doolin. He's a writer.
Well, the writers don't count. We're TV guys.
But you're not reporters. You're just TV hacks.
And here's the thing. And Nigel, you'll appreciate this. So the reason I ended up going into marketing and advertising was because I had a few friends who were a year ahead of me in school, and they went out and got jobs in small markets as one does fresh out of school. Two of them landed in the same market, and that was Laredo, Texas, where they were making we're talking 2003. They were making basically poverty wages. And I was like, I can't do that. I've got student loans to pay off. So I was like, So instead I moved to New York City.
Yeah, my first gig was San Angelo, Texas, market like 197.
I was in Baxter Springs, Kansas.
I don't in newspaper terms, I don't know what those markets are. Baxter Springs, where is that?
I was southeast Kansas.
Okay.
Kind of 30 minutes from Joplin, Missouri.
Well, at least you were close to a metropolis.
Right.
San Angelo.
Actually, you know what? I think
than it is Dallas.
I know where that is. I think I know where that is only because I had a friend who ran at a radio station. He ran a radio station in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
Oh, Pittsburgh. Yes.
So we were not far from there. 20 minutes from Pittsburgh. My first story was Friday Night Football at some small town in southeast Kansas.
Oh yeah.
I think my first non-sports story was I wrote a feature story on old men who like to do crosswords in the newspaper.
Crap, that's me now.
So you decided you didn't want to go to a small market, and you went to. So when did the beer writing thing come about for you? What spurred that on?
So I felt like I had to scratch that itch of telling stories again, because I was doing a very boring. I wouldn't say boring because I'm still doing it now. So clearly I enjoy what I do, but it has nothing to do. But it clearly has nothing to do with beer or writing. And I had a passion for beer at this point. This was, 5 years into my drinking career. I had been
drinking for beer.
Yeah,
I'm putting that on my LinkedIn.
You're an experienced drinker I'm an experienced drinker of 20 years,
Yeah.
That's
great.
In fact, it's almost it'll be 20 years next month legally, but
your career is almost of drinking age.
Legally.
Yes, actually, yeah. But I felt like I I needed an outlet for writing again, and it felt like writing about beer was a nice combination of the two things. And I mean, it was funny because we talk about journalism. It's let's be honest, it's not journalism. I'm passionate about it, what I do, and I call it beer writing, but it's not beer journalism by any stretch of the imagination.
Sure,
I'll leave that to people who are. I'll leave that to the people like Brian Roth or John Hall. People who actually like write for a living. I'm just writing as kind of a side hustle.
It's awesome. Yeah, I still practice whatever it is. It's still journalism.
It's still practice. So we're talking about practice.
We talking about practice. We talking about practice.
So
do you have a favorite story?
Reference. A favorite story about beer?
Yeah, I mean, look, you're telling stories. Do you have a beer story you remember?
Well, let's talk about this before you even jump into that. Obviously, the Brew York blog column, whatever you want to call it. How many have you written?
I mean, it's hard to tell because I mean, well, yeah, because it was really, it started as a blog that was just kind of I wrote about whatever was relevant at the time that it was relevant, and then it only turned into a weekly newsletter, which I started just less than 2 years ago. So we're coming up on the 100th issue of the weekly newsletter. But I mean, there's probably close to 1,000 things that I've written, and some of them are, some of them write themselves. It's just like, hey, here's this event, and here's the list of beers that are going to be poured at this event. And others are, telling the story of the history of beer in New York City. I've written some pieces on the more distant history of beer in New York City since, we had a really huge beer culture here around the turn of the 20th century, when German immigrants had come here and opened their own breweries. Yeah, I mean, I live in Bushwick in Brooklyn, and at its peak in the 1880s, there were probably 15 breweries within walking distance of where I live. So it's really there's a long storied history of beer here, right up to 1976, when basically all the breweries that were left in New York City post-prohibition closed, 2 within a month of each other. That was back in the Rheingold and Schaefer days. And then we had one of the earliest. I believe their slogan was the one beer to have when you're having more than one. Which is still one of my favorite beer slogans of all time.
That's pretty good. Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah. And then, more recent times, one of the first brew pubs in New York, in the U.S. opened, or at least on the East Coast, opened in 1984 here in New York City. That was Manhattan Brewing Company, which ultimately would hire Garrett Oliver, who went on to brew for Brooklyn Brewery. We had a huge boom of brew pubs in the 1990s in New York City. Actually, to bring up Garrett again, he was on a panel that I hosted back in May, where we just talked about that boom of breweries, where something like 20 breweries opened in New York City over the span of 3 years, and the vast majority of them were not good. It was just like, oh, we heard that microbrewing is a thing, so let's open a brewery here. So these are all things that predate, obviously, my drinking experience in New York City, but it was really, really interesting to dive deep into those and get a better understanding of those and tell those stories alongside the stories of, the breweries that are, that grew from scratch here in New York. And I mean, we talk about, I think I mentioned, 2012, 2014 was kind of our sweet spot where, we'd have 6, 8, 10 breweries open a year here. And most of them were by brewers who had previous experience at other breweries in New York City. So it was kind of the family tree branching out. And one of the things that I think is so unique about our scene here, and something that I've written about on more than one occasion, is that we're kind of on the world stage because we're New York City. And so if you're going to open a brewery in New York City, it better be good. like not just like it's not going to last long if it's not. And also, if you're going to get the investment money you need to open a brewery in New York City, it better be good. You better know what you're doing. So we have not had many duds here, and that's made the scene easy to write about, because I'm writing about a lot more openings and closings and a lot more expansions and contractions.
You're at this point a historian. I mean, when's the book coming out, dude? I mean, because you can write a book. I know nothing about the New York beer scene other than, you know, a few places I've gone when I've gone to New York City or whatever. And in that 2 or 3 minutes that you talked about, I'm like, wow, had no idea.
Right.
You know, it's almost like Kansas City back in before Prohibition was known for a lot of breweries. You know, they were run by, you know,
questionable characters,
but they were run by the breweries, but they had all these tap rooms all around Kansas City. It's an interesting thing to see, for the life of me, I'm like, let's talk about Prohibition just for 4 seconds. Why would you outlaw alcohol?
Yeah. Well, and that was the thing. Like New York City was probably the prime example of that, in terms of just like a lot of the articles you read, like pre-Prohibition, talks about all the massive beer halls and beer gardens that were open here that were tied to breweries, and how they were just like drunk fests all the time. And and I'm like, well, I could see why people would want to ban alcohol. But then also you read the articles about, New York City during Prohibition, and it's like, it wasn't really banned here. Like, it was banned, but it was like, if you were connected, the police turned a blind eye to it. It was like, where were they getting beer from? Who knows? But
I think that's how a lot of the bigger cities were, where it was happening, but you could still find it if you were connected.
Kansas City was the same way, because during Prohibition, like St. Joseph, there was the sheriff there was like, no, I'm not doing that. And people would go to St. Joe to drink. That was the whole thing in Kansas City back in the day. They're like, yeah, just go to St. Joe if you want to get some beer. So you can ban whatever you want. It's really not a ban. It's just, it looks cool.
Well, it was kind of like all the articles I read from the day that Prohibition ended were like, it is incredible the amount of logistical thinking went into delivering beer to the masses on the first day that the production of alcohol was legal. Like, where did that beer come from?
You had to be ready for it to happen, right?
Look, those trucks were ready to roll.
Oh yeah, yep, they absolutely were. So,
really,
in fact, that day is coming up.
You waited that long?
No, that was a terrible burp. I almost did not. I almost just let it go to the side. But here we are.
We got to lean in.
That wasn't a lean in burp. So back to the next question. You've been writing for what?
Gee, thanks for finally getting to my question.
Shut the hell up. At least I got back to it. Circling back. Are there some stories that you've written about breweries or cities that you're like, oh, that pop into your head? You're like, because I can, people ask me all the time, what's your favorite beer? Dumb question. That's not a real thing. But you can ask me.
It's one that I had yesterday.
Okay, but
I'd say it's the one in my hand right now. That's always my answer, because it's cold and in my hands.
Yeah.
What's our guy from Chicago? It's the beer in front of me.
Yes, the beer in front of me. But if somebody asks me what's about a brewery, and especially in a city, or even a city, I'll be like, oh, there's certain places I'm like, oh yeah, you got to go here. And if you're going to the city, what have you written about that? Some of the things you're like, oh yeah, that was fucking epic.
Oh gosh, there's a lot of. I mean, I could go in a whole bunch of different directions with that. One story I like that's local here is there's a guy here, Rich Castagna, who started a brewery in his own garage in Maspeth, Queens, where he literally got a permit to brew out of his garage, which sounds like a stereotype, or it sounds like a stereotype of a home brewer, but it was, I mean, he created a brewery and started self-distributing beer in six stills and went on to expand into an actual production space. That brewery is called Bridge and Tunnel. And his production space is once again kind of a MacGyver thing. Like every little piece of it is like salvaged from somewhere. Like he has one or maybe two stainless steel tanks now that he actually bought that are actual brewing equipment and not stuff that he built on his own. And he's got a really loyal following in Ridgewood, Queens now. And, you know, it's just such a cool story to you know, see someone like in a city where it is. So as I said, like people are like seeking out investment to, you know, create this massive brewery to launch from. And he just kind of built his truly from the ground up. I love a story like that. There's a little place on the Lower East Side called That Which Ails You. And the guy who started it, he's like, he's a home brewer basically. And the shtick is, because he's right next to Chinatown, each beer has an ingredient that he got from a Chinatown market. That's so cool. There's some really unique ingredients in the beer, and that's a fun story to tell. And again, in those cases, it's, you know, if someone says, where's the best beer in town? I'll be honest, those aren't the two places I'm going to send them. But if you want a great story and you want something truly unique, you go to places like that. And that is why that's not the question I ask when I travel and go to a city, is who makes the best beer here? Yeah. Like, who do you like here? Because you know, it's stories about the people, like, and it's like, who do you like here can mean different things. It's like, who do I like the beer? Okay, So I'll tell you about the places where I like the beer. Right. Do I like the people? Do the people, like, you know, the atmosphere? Right. Yeah, exactly. So you know, that factors in a lot to you know, stories like that have had an influence on the way that I travel and visit other breweries too. You know, like the breweries that no one's talking about. You know, when I go to a city, like I'm going to go to those breweries. Like, and the thing is, like,
No, funny story. I mean, to cut you off. So I went to Fayetteville, Arkansas, 2 Thursdays ago to go see Trombone Shorty.
I'm wearing a Northwest Arkansas brewery hat, actually.
Oh, you are?
Nice.
Yeah.
Ozark Beer Company. Yeah.
So I go to Trombone Shorty, and I'm like, okay, what breweries are around? I always go to Black Apple Cider in Springdale. Some of the best ciders you'll ever have in your life. And I'm not a cider guy. The only place I've ever had a cider flight and a second cider flight. That's how good they are.
2 flights.
Yes, of cider. Yeah.
That's a lot of cider.
So, you know, we're looking for a brewery, and, you know, I end up on some, you know, whatever, just Googling or whatever. And I see this review of this brewery, Boston Mountain Brewing. And the review is 2 stars. And have you? Yeah. For the
brewery number 2670.
I love that.
Boom. So, you know, I see this review. They talk about the staff is weird, the place is dreary, and the beer is okay. I'm like, but then the response from the brewer was like, yeah, we want our staff to be weird. Once a week we have, so you could be weirder, the weirdest person. Sorry, you thought the vibe was dreary. He said we're going for aggressively something weird.
It was a good clap back.
Oh, it was beautiful. I'm like, gotta go to the brewery, get there. Really good beer. So I'm, you know, the hell with people.
This is like, I never trust a review when it comes to beer.
Never trust people.
Refresh my memory. Is this a place that's like in like a shopping like
right
a
in
strip
the corner
mall kind of thing, but it's like right in the corner? Yep. Okay.
In the corner.
I just wanted to make sure I was remembering right.
It reminded me of Windshift.
Oh,
it's just, you know, just so
like
small.
You go up and like, there's a brewery here.
Exactly.
But the story there is like, those are obviously awesome people. Like, to clap back on the review with that.
Yeah. In my understanding, it's the owner brewer that claps back like that. And that was one of 2 reviews. I was like, yeah, I got to go there. Anyway, I digress. I jumped off where we were going.
You know what? You know what's funny about that? Like whenever I hear a story like that, I think of one place. There's a place in Vancouver, British Columbia, called Storm Brewing. They are, I think, the oldest craft brewery in Vancouver, at least. They've been around since 1994, and it kind of reminds me of Bridge and Tunnel, which I mentioned earlier, in that like all the like equipment is really like old and like MacGyvered together, and it doesn't look like a brewing equipment. But the sign outside, it was like a stainless steel sign that was just like written on, and it said Storm Brewing, so sketchy but great beer, 5 stars, Joseph H on Yelp. And you know what? As I walked in, I was like, well, that's kind of foreboding. And I walked out, and I'm like, yeah, that's pretty accurate.
and hopefully they would make that a beer name. So sketchy. Yeah. Speaking of beer, Nick's out of beer.
I am doubly out of beer.
So you got to come get a mystery beer because I'm landlocked. You have to get up.
Why are you a bitch,
bro? I'm sitting. You can get up. So, Chris, next time you're in Kansas City, you got to come.
Am I sitting?
Are you sitting right now?
Well, you said your excuse was you're sitting,
but I'm also landlocked. If for me to get out of here, it's going to be a fucking shit show. So next time you're in KC, bro, you got to come. A lot of things. You got to come to the studio. It's basically, this building is an old post office.
We're in the vault.
Yeah, and they turned it into a co-working space. And unbeknownst to anybody, I don't think anybody. Did you realize post offices have vaults?
Oh yeah, you know why I know that though?
Why do you know that?
I know that because I've been to a brewery in an old post office, and they had a vault, and I was like, "Post offices have vaults?"
Where's this brewery?
Willimantic, Connecticut, Willimantic Brewing Company. They are in an old post office, and I saw the vault. By the way, not even the only brewery in Connecticut that has a vault. Because last week I went to Bank and Bridge Brewing in Mystic, Connecticut, which is in an old bank. They also have a vault.
Wow. Yeah, there's an old bank in up in St. Joe again, Angry Swede, and they've got a vault, but they use it for a bedroom.
It's okay because his kid sleeps in the closet.
Yeah, and yeah. So what we got there, Nick?
Well, hold on, I got to pour.
Oh, I know it's dark. Ooh. It's probably it's either BKS or Alma Mader. I think it might be BKS. I don't know. I know I got one of each in there.
This is from BKS.
Yes, BKS.
Aloha Breakfast.
Ooh,
an imperial stout.
Okay.
I guess there's coconut in there.
Let's see. He might need to use a flashlight.
With coconut, coffee, and
Aloha, of course.
Yeah,
coconut, coffee, and that might say maple, but I don't know.
I think it is maple.
I haven't brought it up to the nose yet.
That smells like morning coffee right there. You're going to love this, Nick. You're going to love it. Beautiful beer. Of course, I just picked this up like last week. Never looked at the ABV. Don't care. It was a stout. That's all.
It's always stout season.
It is.
I mean, it's literally stout season here starting this week. Other half has an event on Saturday called Stout Season.
I saw that.
Nice.
That is fabulous.
It's the release of their Snowbird series that they do every year with Jay Wakefield.
Yep, I saw the. I do read his column, Nick.
Well, I'm going to sign up for the newsletter.
Yeah. No, I read it.
I'm gonna be a new subscriber. I'm gonna help bump your numbers.
No, because
I love my numbers.
And what's his name? Is his name Chris from Jay Wakefield, the brewer? I can't remember. We met him last year at Barrel and Flow, and he was super cool. Super cool. I
secretly love the Miami beer scene. It's
undercover, dude.
Yeah, I like tripping animals.
Well, who's
you say who else?
Tripping Animals, Three Sons. I mean, there's a whole bunch of great breweries in South Florida. And I was at a beer festival in Barcelona earlier this month, actually. And Tripping Animals was pouring. And, again, it's actually like, it's kind of natural that like Spaniards might gravitate towards South Florida. There's a less of a language barrier there when they travel internationally. But
there's great weather.
Oh yeah, well, that helps too. Not that the weather in Barcelona is that bad either,
Fair point.
Fair point. They like people lined up for that like crazy.
Yeah. So 8.2 on that, you think? Stout?
It's 10.0.
Oh,
I was going to say it's imperial. Like.
Oh, man,
you spaced out.
That's weak sauce.
Right, that's a weak imperial if it's 8.2.
I was like, coffee.
What I like is, you were talking about the stories and the things that people get to meet and these different things and former journalists. Like I love, and I want to know if you're kind of the same here. I love the fact that you get to tell so many stories. Like the beer is just kind of the doorway in.
Yeah.
Like the best thing about this show that we've done is like we meet awesome people and get to tell their stories, and it's kind of about beer.
Yeah. And other stuff.
I mean, that's the thing. Like my newsletter is about beer, but it's not about beers. Like I've very quickly learned when I started writing about beer that I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. I don't need to be a beer reviewer. No one cares about my opinion about beer. I don't want to know anyone else's opinion of beer. Your opinion about a beer matters to one person, and it's yourself. So I'm not going to write about what I like in a beer. Like I used to do in my newsletter, I used to do like a beer of the week, but even then it wasn't like, this is the greatest beer I've ever had, and here's why I like it. Yeah. It's like, hey, here's a really interesting beer. Here's a beer with a backstory to it. Here's a beer that's a style that no one else is making in New York right now. Those are the things I write about when I write about beers.
Yeah,
but for the most part, I'm just writing about beer. I'm writing about the culture. I'm writing about the atmosphere of a place I go. I'm writing about, trends in beer. What styles am I seeing out there? It's not about, again, as I said, like my favorite beer is the beer that's in my hand right now because it's cold and in my hand. But like that's really how I feel. Like it's always about discovery, and not necessarily discovery of new things. It's rediscovering old things too. Yeah. I love this time of year because it's Sierra celebration season. It's Anchor Christmas ale season. Like, these are things I keep coming back to again and again that are true classics. And those are as exciting for me to drink as the brand new New England IPA from the brewery down the street.
Yeah.
Well, and I think too, like if a brewer tells me a good story about why he brewed it, I'm going to love it even more.
Yeah.
Like if there's a story behind it, if I was playing around with the recipe, blah, 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 whatever the story is, if the brewer tells me a story, I'm going to love it even more.
Yeah. There's a brewery here in town, the Goat, the year old, and there's this beer they did. And somehow the brewer decided he dry hopped the wrong beer.
It is a good story.
It's a great story. He's like, oops, I just dry hopped the wrong beer.
I did it again.
And it turned out, it's like a dry hop fucking Pilsner. It was fine. It was good. It's actually really good.
But it's even better when you know that, like, I fucked it up.
But it tastes good.
It tastes good.
So Chris, let's tackle the elephant in the room. Let's really talk about this, bro. I might have a little bit of Chris O'Leary envy.
Uh-oh.
So
brace yourself.
So you have a day job, but you travel a lot.
I do.
Hold on. Did you win the lottery? How the fuck are you doing this? Because that's a formula I need to where we want to take this show on the road. Maybe we would just start going with him.
We're just gonna ride his coat.
Look, if we can,
your Sky Miles will probably get us three all I've been reading your column. I'm like,
do you have room in your luggage for us?
Like that cat? They just got come on, dudes, and look.
This is actually kind of funny. So
big.
This afternoon, I was quoted in an article in the Wall Street Journal about a.
That's for fun. It's fine.
Like, so as a former journalist, is saying I was quoted in the Wall Street Journal as good as saying I got a story in the Wall Street Journal?
If you get quoted,
I got a byline, I got a quote. Which is better?
I mean, normally, like I would like promote my beer stuff, but I was like, this is not the time or place for it. I was just airing my grievance with my favorite airline who changed the policy. And the reporter reached out to me and said, hey, it seems you're pretty angry about this. I saw your post on social media.
Is that a good story? Looking at your social media? Is that what's going on?
Is that news gathering now?
Apparently,
that's not what
right?
Those are the classes I took in college. No.
So just
of course, you have to comb MySpace back then.
There was no space back in my college days.
So I'm just going to quote the opening from this. Chris O'Leary, a Brooklyn-based media strategist, has tallied around 815,000 miles on this airline during his lifetime. It's really in the last 15 years. Most of that has been work. Well, I would say about half of that's been work travel. I was very grateful for a long period of my career to have to travel several times a year to Denver, Portland, San Francisco, Seattle. It's like, darn. And it's like, let's have our meetings on a Thursday and I'm just going to fly home on Sunday.
Yeah.
So that's really what kind of, exacerbated the whole let's go to. I mean, it's the reason why I've almost been to as many breweries in California as I have in New York. I've been to over 200 breweries in Colorado because I'll just go there and stick around for a weekend, and you spit and you'll hit a new brewery there. So I kind of used my work travel to my advantage. And also I earned miles that I could use, to travel other places.
Like I said.
I'll say this, and I think that anyone, I mean, even by New York City standards, I live fairly humbly. Nigel, I think I mentioned my first major purchase in several years. My first I don't own a car because I live in New York City. So that's one expense I have. I bought a Peloton, and that's my first major purchase in several years. And it's I live pretty humbly. My TV in my living room is 15 years old. I am someone who I value experiences more than material things. And that's how I've lived my life. I don't live lavishly at home, and I save that money to travel. And it's
your beer
really
travels
turned
a lot.
Experience. Yeah.
Your
I mean,
the places you go, I'm like, what the fuck? I want to go.
but here's the thing. I also go to places that no one would think to go to for beer. And when I go to those places and tell them I'm there for the beer, they are, I would say 50% of the time they are really happy about it. And 50% of the time they're really confused about it. Northwest Arkansas was one of those.
Yeah. It's the experience. I mean, last week you were in Oklahoma City.
Mm-hmm.
And people, you probably get the question all the time. If I'm in this city, where should I go? Where should I go the question I get a lot of time, where should I go that's 5 hours away? And I'm like,
Oklahoma City.
I think Oklahoma City And sorry, Tulsa, I think you've been surpassed. I think Oklahoma City is better.
And I was ready to like write off OKC. Like the second I got there, I'm like, this isn't going to be nearly as good as Tulsa, and it was. And the thing was, I had been to OKC 7 years ago.
Yeah. It's been a while since you've been. It's changed since then, but
it's a different place.
To your point in your last column,
the
laws changed.
Yep.
But for me, I'm like, because I lived in Oklahoma City. I went to high school and college in Oklahoma. Blah blah blah. Yada yada yada.
Yeah, but that was like 1960. It was a big deal.
There were no breweries.
Right.
Chris,
he gets older every time.
Chris, do not laugh at his jokes, okay? He thinks he's going on the road. I'm some comedian.
Ask my friend Cody Holyoke sometime about how old everyone thinks I am, because I get those jokes all the time too. Believe it or not.
So Oklahoma City is one of those things. It's super undercover. Nobody realizes, my favorite story about Prairie, and originally was a Tulsa, now it's in Krebs, which nobody knows where the fuck Krebs is. For those who don't know, it's Southeast Oklahoma by fucking McAllister, by the prison. Well, you've got Prairie OKC who do not distribute and do their own thing. And we've had some Prairies on this show.
Yeah.
I mean, the one that comes to mind was the goddamn Red Hot Sour.
Oh, that was
they did a sour with Red Hots.
It was amazing.
It was stupid.
Have you had anything in the S's series? The tiny S's.
I do not know what he's talking about.
So in a similar vibe, so they can't call them this. They are how will I say it without I mean, I don't have to protect it.
You don't have to follow the rules.
But I'll say this. They are made with rainbow candies.
We heard about this.
And in fact, they physically, by hand, divide up the colors of the rainbow to brew beers with each specific color.
This is a Prairie OKC?
Yeah.
What the fuck? I don't know.
Why are we not in on this?
I just had my buddy. My buddy comes up every year for Black Friday. He's from Oklahoma City.
Is this Kenny?
Yeah, Kenny is Kenny. You haven't told me about this. You're wrong.
I mean, they might make them in Krebs. I don't know, but I had them at Prairie OKC. Everyone in OKC was talking about them too. So
yeah. So you're pouring a new beer. What you got there?
I am. I've got a beer from Alewife Brewing in Queens, since I figured I did this was the brewery based in Manhattan but brews in the Bronx. This is the brewery that brews in Queens. This is the Queens Boulevard IPA.
Like.
Yeah. So
can we do like lights on our video, like thumbs up that pops up on the video? Can you figure that out?
What do you want me to do? Have actual production skills?
You're the one that we didn't do a mystery beer last time, did it?
Oh, damn it. Hang on. Makeup time.
Mystery beer.
I love
Bree,
that.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. Shout out to Bree Burrows. Love her. I did see her.
Where's she from again?
Big Rip in North Kansas City.
Big Rip. Yep. Yeah. I've been to Big Rip.
She is awesome. In all definitions of the word awesome, Bree meets them.
Yeah. I don't know if you know, you may or may not know this. Kansas City, we talk to people all over the country, right? Kansas City probably has the most female brewers of any city that I know of. It's kind of shocking because when we talk to people, they're like, "You got a female brewer, female owner, female assistant brewer." It's just a thing here. Because
awesome.
as we've talked about on the show, we get into the diversity of the beer, and people are shocked, especially the people in Pittsburgh. They're like, "You got how many female brewers?"
Which has a pretty good beer scene.
Yeah,
but I remember Ed and Day were shocked when we talked about how many female brewers we had.
Yeah, so we're proud of that. Yeah, shout out to all the female brewers.
I really enjoyed my trip to Big Rip.
You say it again?
I really enjoyed my trip to Big Rip. I was there right after I saw you at Pine Tree Plaza, actually.
So what number is Big Rip?
Big Rip was 2756.
You know what?
I'm fascinated, but he has that spreadsheet on tap, ready to tell us.
Yeah, that's probably his brain right now. He's just
you know what? I've never done this before. This should be like brewery roulette. Throw out a number between one and
a number. All right. 1,249.
1,249 was. Oh my gosh! This is a great brewery.
This is why beer stories.
This is Cerveceria Dos Dingos. It is a brewery in San Andres, just outside of Buenos Aires in Argentina. It is a brewery started by two Argentines who learned to brew in Australia, hence the name Dos Dingos. And they use exclusively Southern Hemisphere hops. So like they took me into their cold box, and it's just all like, Nelson Sauvin and Matueka and just
did you
all
write
these
this story?
Like I don't even think I wrote a story about it. Like I posted it on Instagram probably, but like it was so memorable to me just because it was such a unique experience. Like I showed up in this like little like spot. They reached out to me on Instagram and they were like, "Hey, we see you're in Buenos Aires. Would you like to come to our brewery?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure. Why not?" Awesome. Like have this Uber driver take me to this like desolate industrial park, which describes about 90% of breweries worldwide anyway. I just like kind of pound on the door, and this guy like opens the window upstairs. He's like, "Hola," and I'm like, "Hola, me llamo Chris," and just like, Brew York. I'm like, yeah. It's like, oh. It was, that was, I mean, look, I don't have a great story to tell with every number, but that was one that was like.
So how do you pick? I feel like you're traveling every week. That's what it seems like to me. You may not be. That's what it seems like to me. How do you pick
2 weeks a month? I'd say 2 weekends a month. I'm gone. I would say
you're beer traveling.
Mm-hmm.
Man, Chris, I hate you, but I love you. That's my goal. That's our goal for 23.
I've heard that. You're not the first person to say that to me, so
I'm sure. Yeah, it's fine.
So Nigel asked this earlier, and you didn't answer. So I'm gonna ask it again.
Uh-huh.
When's the book coming? You've got a book. When are you writing the book?
I don't want to write the book.
You don't want to write? Get a ghostwriter.
Look, Cody will write it. Cody will write your book for you.
Cody will do it. Cody,
I've had more than a few people reach out to me about, writing a book, and it's something I'd like to do when I have time to reflect on it, but like I'm still in the thick of it. I'm still on pace for like 350 breweries this year.
Bro,
and this is a quiet year for me.
Like Game of Thrones. There's gonna be seasons of the book. It's like what's the Harry Potter shit? How many books did she write?
I don't know.
A bunch.
Do we need to talk about her?
No.
Can we cancel her?
No.
It's already been canceled.
Like my son, you can't even bring her up anymore.
Why?
Oh yeah, she's transphobic.
Is she?
Oh yeah.
Oh, I did not know this.
Yep.
Yeah. Anti-gay.
What?
Oh yeah. Horrible person. Bad person.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Sorry I brought that up.
Look, she violated rule number 2, Nigel.
Don't be a dick.
She was a dick.
Do you know? Yep. Do you know the rules?
What's rule number 1? If rule number 2 is
don't die.
Rule 1 is don't die.
Rule number 2, don't be a dick. Because that covers a lot of things. All the other rules after that, it's up to you. That's life right there.
Because Nigel, what happens when you put good into the beer world?
Yeah, if you violate rule number 2, you ruin your beer karma.
That's right.
We need to send you a beer karma.
Also the name of a beer shop in Brooklyn. That was at last night. Beer karma. Yep.
Oh, we're about to send him a cease and desist.
So we have a beer. It's Beer Karma.
Oh yeah.
Well, it's Beer Karma number 2.
2.0.
Oh,
So
right.
last year,
I remember seeing this,
he did the cranberry cinnamon, and this was my thing was, Chris, I wanted him to have the brew experience, get on the brew stand.
I had an experience. I don't know what your problem is.
Well, shout out to my boy Nolan for letting him do it. But Nolan's system is kind of a bit automated. And my brew days, like when I brewed a beer at Windshift, it was a lot of manual labor.
Nigel was mad because he doesn't think I worked hard enough.
Yeah, exactly. So this year it was because it's your turn to brew a beer. I was like, so we took the same stout base. I'm like, okay, let's do. I love Andy's mints. So we did a chocolate mint stout that we came out. We'll send you a crowler of that for sure. Yep.
Awesome.
Got you.
I'm a sucker for Andy. Like those are like a staple in my mom's pantry. And like when I was home for Thanksgiving, I'm like, I'm gonna sneak a little one out of here. And
so the brewery is actually, when you order it, they hand you an Andy's mint with the beer.
Yeah.
So you can compare the flavors.
That was
great.
That was my idea. So yeah.
All right. And I'm gonna give credit to Nolan.
No, I showed up with the fucking Andy's mint. Nolan forgot. Nolan, fuck off.
Hey.
What?
You be nice to my beer daddy.
That's good, Lord. That's your beer daddy.
Who's your beer daddy?
Nolan, the brewer.
No. I got that. I feel like that's a new like icebreaker question among
who's your beer
daddy?
Well, our podcast daddies.
We have
podcast daddies. That's Ed and Day.
They didn't like that.
They don't like that, which really means that we have to keep saying. Like next year, we're making T-shirts to hand out.
Podcast daddies.
We're gonna hand out at the festival next year. Podcast daddies, Ed and Day.
Bro,
it's kind of funny. So that's not even the first time I've heard podcast daddy, because there's a podcast I listen to that has nothing to do with beer. It has nothing to do with anything at all, actually. Called it's called Too Beautiful to Live. Yeah, I know. It's like the Seinfeld podcast. It's a podcast about nothing.
Yeah,
it's just two guys talking to each other, and they've been talking to each other for like almost 15 years. It'll be 15 years in January.
I thought he was going to say 11.
That'd be a shit ton.
But they their fans credit when they credit other people who introduce them to the podcast. They call them the podcast is called Too Beautiful to Live, TBTL for short, and they call the people who introduce them to it their TBTL daddy. And it's and the hosts of the show hate it. They absolutely hate it. But people continue to use the term all the time.
We're gonna hand those shirts out next year.
Podcast daddies. Look, we fully expect you to come to Barrel and Flow next year, bro.
Yeah.
I absolutely will.
Yeah,
I will carve it out of my schedule.
Yeah.
August 13th.
12th, 13th, whatever. So what we do is because as a beer festival, it's not just a beer festival. That's the beauty of it. Fridays they do the whole symposiums. Like this year they did the screening of One Pint at a Time. The bottle share on Friday night is the most epic,
legendary.
It's beautiful. I mean, there's a lot of beer, but there's a lot of people, there's a lot of stories. And then the Brew Fest, and then we always make it a Friday through Monday, because on Sunday after the fest,
that's a walkabout day.
That's the walkabout. Like we went to. You ever been to Mike's Beer Bar in Pittsburgh?
Mike's, no.
Right across from
PNC Park.
PNC Park.
Oh,
Bloody hell, bro!
What is it like 300 beers?
Yeah, 300 beers. It was funny because we rolled up in there.
He's got a 3-ring binder to find your beer.
I love that.
And they had all
a few bars.
They had all the Barrel and Flow beers, all the Barrel and Flow beers in cans at that bar. Every one of them. The collabs.
Oh, that's great.
And that steak. Remember that steak?
That steak was
Bro, the food, you wouldn't think, you walk into this place, you would not think it was going to be a thing. And that was what concert was happening? We walked down there.
The Metallica. They were getting ready for Metallica. All the Metallica fans are in line to buy their merch and get in. And this is like at fucking 11 o'clock in the morning, right?
It was crazy.
And I mean, I'm old enough to remember the first Metallica, like the Black Album tours, right?
Yeah. They're still popular.
So all of the people are out and from ages 20 to 70.
Oh, absolutely. And because they were playing at PC Park, so we rolled up in there.
Well, that whole weekend, it was Billy Joel, Garth Brooks, Metallica.
Yeah.
Like everything was happening that weekend in Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh's an underrated town, man.
I agree. Every time I go there, I have a great time.
Breweries.
Yeah. And there's some really good beer there too.
Oh,
you know,
for sure.
when I first went, back in the day when it was called Fresh Fest in 2019,
mm-hmm.
I'd heard about Pittsburgh. I was like, oh, you know what it reminded me of, Chris? It reminded me of if Oklahoma City had rivers. That's what it reminded me of.
And hills.
It was rivers and hills.
Yeah.
But it's kind of very,
that blue collar vibe.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, the one thing I love about Pittsburgh is like, you know,
everybody's nice. Like seriously.
And from neighborhood, it's almost like going to the last time I was in New York City. You go from Brooklyn to whatever borough you go to, you're like, oh, this is different than 2 blocks away.
Mm-hmm.
It's you know, New York City reminds me of, because I'm born and raised in England, grew up in London. It's London, but smaller.
Yeah.
It really
that's why I go to London so much, because it feels familiar to me. You know, it's like I can go to Hackney and get a completely different experience than like, like City of London or like Bermondsey. I mean,
you go to Brixton or whatever. Yeah.
Yep. Oh, Brixton. I love Brixton.
Bro,
I love the history of Brixton. I mean, that's so. One of my dad's old friends joined us for Thanksgiving this year, and he has so many interesting stories. He was a coach driver in England for a long time.
That's a bus.
Yeah.
I don't know what that meant.
Was he up there whipping the horse to go faster? What's that mean? I don't know.
Once they got rid of the horse, they just kept the name. It was fine. It was a coach.
and he was telling me just all these fascinating stories, and he's like, yeah, Brixton in the 70s was really different than Brixton now. And I'm like, I know, like I've read up on the history of it. Like, yeah. But
Chris,
it
ain't that much different.
Yeah.
And then this one I'll tell you, it's not different. So when I got off the tube, went to Brixton, and I walked to where I lived, still a lot of Jamaicans.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No. And that's what I love about it is like that neighborhood still has like a lot of like Jamaican energy and culture. And in spite of the fact that it's like kind of like creepily gentrifying, like it reminds me a lot of Bushwick in that way. Like my neighborhood, like, you know, it's historically been Hispanic and now it's, you know, slowly gentrifying, but like keeping its like I have a tortilla factory down the street from me, and they've just like, we're going to stay here as long as we can and just make great tacos. So
well, in Brixton.
Sorry, I'm excited. He just said tacos.
And when I went to Brixton,
nothing makes me happier.
4 years ago, when I walked down Maole Street, nothing had changed. Where I grew up, that part of the building had burnt down. They rebuilt it exactly the same.
No changes.
No, I was like, but the only difference was when I got there, I was like, as a kid, you felt like you were walking like 7 miles. No, it was like 700 feet. It was so much smaller. I was like, God damn. I just loved it. I just, you know, I knew enough about when I left England as a 12-year-old to go back and to see. I remember a lot of it. So literally I could walk around and be like, oh, I know where I'm going. You know, it was super weird, but as a kid, you're like, God, this is far. No, it's not. You had smaller legs. So Chris,
it's like okay.
Go ahead.
I was just remembering of like I used to walk to school, and I retraced the route of my walk to school when I was in like third grade, and I like it felt like it was like a you know, mile walk, and it was like
2 blocks.
Like, Yeah, it was. It was.
Yeah.
I was like, I got beat up when I was like 8 years old on the walk home from school, and I'm like, I could have just run home.
Yeah.
What was I doing? I could have made it.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, that's the thing too. Like you go and you look at like I used to ride my bike all the way to, and then you go back and you do the route. Oh yeah, that wasn't that far.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You ready for another beer? Mystery beer?
When am I not ready for another beer?
Well, try it. Come get it. I can't. I'm landlocked.
God damn it.
Is that better?
Oh, much better. Much better.
So Chris,
is Chris ready for a new beer? What's he got?
He's
Oh,
still drinking the same beer.
I'm still drinking the same beer.
Nope.
Sorry,
It's fine.
I should be.
No.
Faster, Chris, faster.
How would you characterize like the beer scene where you are for people? I've been there. I get it.
Mm-hmm.
How would you characterize it? Because you're there.
Yeah. So there's a lot of, there's a lot of ways to, you know what? I call it choose your own adventure. So when I go to a city or like have been to a city and people ask me, hey, you've been to Tulsa. What breweries do you like in Tulsa? Or, hey, you've been to Chicago. What breweries do you like in Chicago? No, honestly, Chicago's a bad example because I think they have a scene where you could spend a week and a half visiting.
Oh, yeah. You got a lot of, expend 175, some shit like that.
Yeah. But like, people who I would meet in, say, OKC, who would be like, okay, if I'm going to New York, what brewery should I go to? And I'm like, I don't have a set answer to that. What do you like?
Yeah.
Do you like lagers? Do you like IPAs? Do you want a really cool story behind a brewery? Do you want good food with your beer? Like it's a choose your own adventure kind of place. What is cool, and I would say this is true of a lot of other cities, is we have a lot of neighborhoods with great breweries. I would say that, I can tell you the best neighborhood for beer is Gowanus in Brooklyn, where you can walk between 5 world-class breweries, and just have a great day. And, those breweries are, Other Half, Strong Rope. Strong Rope's really cool because they source 100% of their ingredients from New York State. You've got Wild East, which I think is the dark horse of New York City beer right now. They're the brewery that no one's talking about that's making some of the best beer in town. Across the style spectrum, lagers are great. They make great English style beers. They have a great barrel aging and wild fermentation program. The brewer there would hate me for saying this, but he makes some of the best IPAs in New York City too. Because he doesn't want to be known for his IPAs. That's right. Like, yeah. But he's making great beer. You've got Finback, which is another really well-known brewery that makes some great beer, and Threes too, which I would say makes some of the best lagers in New York City, but also across the board makes pretty incredible beer. So, that's 5 of the 50 breweries in New York City. So you could do that crawl like 10 more times and still hit some really great places. In the neighborhood I'm in, it is really like, in New York City is a city of neighborhoods, and no matter what, part of the city you're in, you can find a good place to drink beer. And down to like, there is a brew pub in Sheepshead Bay in Brooklyn. Sheepshead Bay is a heavily Russian and Ukrainian immigrant neighborhood, and they have a brew pub where I walked in, and I was pretty much the only one who was just casually speaking English there, and they had like a cold box full of dried fish. Like, this is like truly traditional, but they also have a brewery in the back. The place is called Tap Beer. It's this little place like off the Q train, like just steps from the beach in Brooklyn. And, like, where else are you going to find a place like that in the US? So like, and that's just an example of a brewery. I mean, that like I have to point out, there's great beer bars here too. Like, and that is the thing that really defined beer culture in New York City for a long time was, we have like iconic beer bars like Blind Tiger Ale House, which has been around since the early 90s and continues to like celebrate all the local beer that we have here in New York. We've got newer places. I mean, we're the birthplace of Barcade, which is an iconic chain of beer bars that are also arcades. And I mean, they've been around for they're coming up on almost 20 years in business as well. You've got this place called Rabbit Club, which is in Greenwich Village. It is like 4 steps down from the street, no sign on the door. You walk in, it's only open from like 5 p.m. to 4 a.m. 4 a.m., of course, our closing time. Only open till 4 a.m.
4 a.m. No big deal. We're fine.
Where like this place only has a beer license. So you walk in, the only thing you can really drink there is beer. And they, that's where I go. That's where I go to drink bottles of Orval. Is this like Orval. Really dingy, dark beer bar in Greenwich Village, and it's
Orval.
Yeah,
that's awesome. Yeah. So when I was there, and you talked about some of the beer scene. My first Brooklyn experience was Other Half, which I fucking love, because I went to Pastry Town, which is the most ridiculous beer fest ever in the world. You give me pastry beers, pastries, and wrestling. You sign me up.
I'll be completely honest. This is where you and I differ. You are a Pastry Town guy. I'm a Green City guy. I have never been to Pastry Town, but I do not miss Green City. So Green City is their IPA festival, and Pastry Town is their Pastry Stout festival.
Okay, gotcha.
I got to tell you, I'm going for the stouts.
And that's what Pastry Town was. Right. It was, and then they had like pastry seltzers. It was ridiculous. And then they had pastries.
Whoa! Don't just gloss over that.
Pastry seltzers. You know who's really good at the pastry seltzers? Another brewery in New York City, really good at the pastry seltzers. Evil Twin.
That's what I had at Pastry Town. Evil Twin. Yep.
I don't know how to feel about this.
He's all of a sudden all verklempt.
Pastry seltzer. Yeah, it's a thing.
Can it be good?
They were like 9%.
Look, we all love a heavy hitter.
I'm not saying it was great, but it was an experience.
But can it be good?
They weren't terrible.
I'm questioning this,
and we're talking about.
I'm not going to say no if it's offered to me.
When I went to
I'm questioning
Town,
this.
It was March of 2020, right before.
If that thing you went to that Pastry Town.
Yeah, so if that was a week later, it would have been canceled. And the funny thing was, go ahead.
Can I tell you just a real snapshot about how on the map Other Half is around the world?
Mm-hmm.
That weekend, I was in Fredericton, New Brunswick in Canada at a beer festival there called the Atlantic Canada Craft Beer Fest, something like that. It was a celebration of beer in Atlantic Canada. And it was chilly, but not frigid. But I went there because my friends who live up that way told me it was a great festival to go to. So I'm there, and on my during the afternoon session, I had tickets to the evening session on that Saturday. And while you were at Pastry Town, I was sat at a brewery it's like literally as you were probably walking through the super spreader event that was Pastry Town in New York. I was sitting at Trailway Brewing in Fredericton. And these two guys next to me were from another brewery in Moncton, New Brunswick. And I'm like, I never had anything from you guys. I said to the bartender, like, what do you recommend? He's like, he's just running through the menu and everything. Where are you visiting from? I'm like, from New York. And the guys turned next to me like, you're from New York? I'm like, yeah. It's like, why aren't you at Pastry Town today? It's like, how do you know about Pastry Town? So,
you know, the funny story, we were there at Pastry Town. You know, they had the first responders. So, you know, COVID was brand new, blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. And, you know, Blake and I, shout out to Blake from Fringe here in Kansas City. There was this first responder team, and on the back of their shirts, it said Corona. We didn't know there was a Corona in New York.
Corona Queens. Yeah.
Like a coronavirus response team.
Because like back then we didn't know anything.
Yeah, but we knew Corona.
Right, but it was just like that's a Corona, but it's not here.
But I did not know there was a Corona in New York.
It was incredible because like a week later I was home and I had my last the following Saturday I was sitting at Finback's Brewery in Queens, and like they had hand sanitizer dispenser by the door, and like the garage door was open, and we were all just like, this is kind of weird, huh? Like, should we actually like I ran into a friend of mine and I was like, should we hug? Should we not? It's just like, and then like 2 days later, it's like everything shut down and that's it.
Yeah. Crazy.
Yeah. You came back and within a week we were all stuck at home.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure I was an early adopter of whatever it was. Because I know when I got to New York, I was like hacking and shit. I was like, whatever. But one of the places I really love. So Blake, shout out to Blake from Fringe. He one of his buddies is an actor in New York City, and we met him at Torst, the beer bar. Torst.
Yeah.
That's that reaction. To Torst. It was Torst. It's all stemware glass for the beers. And the food,
that's fancy.
The food, it was like going into like hand and glove here. It's all like white and bright. It's beautiful.
Pinky out drink.
Yeah,
pinky out drink.
But all craft beer, and the food is stupid. And the thing that just struck me there, they had beer from American Solera in New York City. I was like, what the fuck? Out of Tulsa. I was like,
they are. So Torst was the first beer bar in the world to have a Michelin star, and that was when they.
Are you serious?
Really?
Yeah. Yep.
Wow.
Yep. They were the first like Michelin star. Technically, they were the first Michelin star restaurant to only serve beer. I think that was their claim to fame. Now they've gone through other chefs since then and focused more on beer than the food. But the food's still fantastic and the aesthetic is incredible, right? Like, I mean, that's an amazing place to drink beer.
So, Chris, now the real question is if you can find it, because there's no sign.
Oh yeah. This is a running theme. I told you about another bar that has no sign. It's just like, but at least with Torst,
we walked around for 10 minutes. Like, where the fuck is this place? There's no sign.
Torst, my advice is always like look for the like really bright decor, and like you can see through the window, so you can kind of see, but there's no sign that says that. Yeah, bro.
That night we were there, you could not see in, and it wasn't bright. It was like 8 p.m. We were like, where the fuck is? We were texting Blake's friend. We're like, oh, I'm already here. Where? And to your other point, like other half, I love me some other half. Pastry Town was fun. When we got to town, we went to the tap room, and that's when I learned about oat cream IPAs. See, he did it again.
Yep. I mean, if there's one thing.
If there's
one thing that they were like truly like created, I mean, if they created a style, and they were pretty instrumental in some of the really unique hopping concepts that are happening today. Like they've been on the forefront of the technology around hopping, but oat cream IPA is just like kind of a cheater thing, and it's amazing. I mean, and the thing is like,
those 10% beers, you would never know it, right? So we go to the tap room. We're like, what the fuck? And so when I got back to Kansas City, I went to Tony at Windshift. I was like, we need to do an oat cream IPA. He's like, what the fuck is that? So we did one together, and it was one of those things that when you put oats in anything, IPA, everybody can drink it. Yeah. It's so, there's no hot bitterness. It just makes everything right.
So smooth.
I had that one.
You didn't?
I don't think so.
I'm sorry.
Why hasn't he done it since?
He's waiting for me to come back.
When did you make that?
When? I think we did that in the summer of 2020. We did that during the pandemic.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was.
So you can say you were on the cutting edge there.
Well, as soon as I found that out, I had never heard of an oat cream IPA. I'm like, let's fucking go. And that's why I'm a fanboy of Other Half. Then I went to last fall I went to DC. Unbeknownst to me, there's Other Half there.
Yes, there is.
I was like,
they now have 6 locations.
I know they've got the one in Rockefeller, don't they?
Yep.
Yeah.
And the second one in Brooklyn, and they've got Rochester, and they've got Philadelphia too.
Motherfuckers. Bro, I was at the one in DC, and my buddy Greg, shout out to my buddy Greg, doesn't drink beer. He actually drank several other IPAs and was like, oh, these are really good. I literally got a case of beer, and the next day shipped it all back to myself. I was like, this is not a game. Because and they're snarky and smart because they're cans, and I think we talked about this. Depending on what region it's from, the top of the cans have different colors.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So yep. I think, I was like, who was smoking what to say we're gonna make this out? Do you know what I'm saying? I would never have thought of
that. In Rochester or something like that. Yeah.
The green ones are in DC, or the red. There's a red one. I don't know. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's like their whole thing. And here's the thing. So there's a lot of hype beast breweries out there. Let's be honest, and Other Half has become one, but they've had a lot more fun with it than a lot of other hype beast breweries have.
Absolutely.
I mean, I hate to bring. There's a certain hype beast brewery in Massachusetts that I will not call out by name that I also referenced in my newsletter last week, and one person emailed me and they're like, I know exactly which brewery you're talking about. But it's a brewery that is a hype beast brewery. It's a brewery that like people chase after their stuff, and it's like, in order to have a beer at our tap room here, you have to log into our website at 9 a.m. and make a reservation for a 3-hour window, and make sure you show up at the start of that window. And
beer should not be hard.
Your maximum is 3 beers. Exactly. And that was the thing is Other Half recognized that one of the biggest impediments to people loving them was the fact that their beer was hard to get. Whereas a lot of other hype beast breweries embrace the fact that their beer is hard to get. And now I can walk into Other Half's tap room in Brooklyn and have my choice of getting cans from like 30 different styles. And it's awesome. And I can walk out of there 10 minutes later.
We're going to need some beer mail.
Get some beer mail. I have a whale pod sitting over here with your name on it.
When I went to Pastry Town, the one line I would not, because I don't do lines. This fucking side project.
Oh yeah,
from St. Louis. That line was stupid, and I'm like, that's not even the best beer here. You hype monsters are dumb. There was
so the beer I went to in Barcelona, the longest line was for was it Monkish? I think it was Monkish. But it was like, it's like, that like there's like 10 other breweries here that make beer that's just as good as theirs is, that you don't have to wait in line for. And and that was like I will admit, like I got angsty about Other Half for a time when I was just like, I'm like, I'm not going to stand in line on a Saturday morning for 4 hours just to buy their cans.
No.
But
look, making it
they
hard
recognized that was actually like that was an impediment to their growth and their popularity. Like they want to bring other people into beer. Yeah.
I'm not standing in line. Sorry.
Or as we say in New York City, online.
Fucking You know what? You know what? That's a fucking totally British knockoff. We're online, really.
It's you know what? I'm not a native New Yorker, so I can also make fun of New Yorkers for this, but man, they get adamant about that sometimes. When I write in line in my newsletter, I will have like friends who will like screenshot it and text me and say like it's online. Like, no.
You're lucky they didn't say it. You're lucky they didn't say it's a Q.
Yeah, right.
But I mean, like, seriously, like, good for you for making a product that people want. Awesome.
Oh, sure.
But when you make it hard, that goes against, we have a theme, right? Beer is for everyone.
Yeah.
And when you make it hard to get, the beer is not for everyone.
Yeah.
And I call it beers above replacement, kind of like wins above replacement in baseball. It's like
you got really nerdy with it there.
Can you tell them a baseball?
What's your beer war?
So the concept
has a beer war of 3.4.
I actually should like create a numerical calculation of this since
people,
look, I want credit with that addition to your newsletter. I want credit that you've invented beer war.
Beer war. Love
the
it.
B war of this beer.
So, but beers above replacement would actually be bar, which is even better.
That's true. That's true.
Yes.
But the whole concept is a beer that you have to jump through hoops to get. How much better is that than a beer you don't have to jump through hoops to get? And like, is a beer from this certain brewery in Massachusetts so much better that you're willing to put up with all the BS that goes into sitting at that tap room and getting that reservation and rushing to get online just to make sure that you can get in there? Is that much better than a beer you can go down the street and get?
No, because the beer is better when it's a tap room and a brewery that I love.
Chris, you came to Windshift. Shout out to Tony from Windshift.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the best beer in Kansas City that nobody knows about.
Yep.
All day.
Absolutely.
And I know enough guys who in our homebrew club that have gone quote unquote pro that are brewing. Praise and Taps is a great example. Half the time people are confused. They brew their own beer because they started out as something else, homebrew supply store, and people are still fucking confused. Come on, people.
I had a great time there. I had some great beer there. I had that Kolsch. That Kolsch still sticks out in my mind. That was really tasty.
That Kolsch
is a great story behind that.
Is there? I don't know the story. That's one of the best Kolsch's I've had. Was there a story behind the
Taps Kolsch?
Yeah. What story?
Which one is that?
It's at the PTP G&T. It's at the Pine Tree Plaza. That's the only place you can get it. The Kolsch.
Oh, okay.
Number one.
I'm getting that. Never mind.
Yeah, the Kolsch glass and everything.
You know what I was thinking of the house beer.
That was terrible. No, house beer is great. That was my burp was terrible. No, the house beer has a great story. So
what's house beer?
Here we go. So look, we didn't announce our last mystery.
Hold on one second.
Did you make it to Alma Mader?
I have made it to Alma Mader. Yes.
Yeah, they fucking.
What number was Alma Mader?
2,473.
What was it?
2,473. It was right in between Strange Days and Diametric, which was the next day.
Okay,
nice.
After we went to the Goat, which you mentioned earlier, actually.
Yep. So this is Neverknown Maole Vanilla. They do several of these.
Do you notate which beers you had at those stops?
No, and that's the thing. I feel like I have a beergraphic memory, like a photographic memory, but for beer. because we talked about great great steps, and I'm like, oh yeah, that Kolsch was really great. Like I still remember that Kolsch. Like,
Chris, you need to go copyright beergraphic memory, and you need to put that on. Do you have any? You need to have like a Brew York. You need to have some merch. Beergraphic memory. He's writing it down. If he steals it, we'll give you royalties. Beergraphic memory.
Royalties.
That's amazing.
Beergraphic memory.
If I look at my notes, that's going in the show. That's going in the show notes. If I look at my notes.
So
Which,
anyway,
look, is not a guarantee.
This is an Imperial Oatmeal Brown Ale.
I feel like this is not as heavy a hitter as the last two.
What do you think it is? Imperial.
Well, that's an Imperial though.
Brown Ale. Oatmeal Brown Ale. What would your ABV guess?
Imperial Oatmeal Brown.
Oatmeal Brown Ale.
So an Imperial Brown would suggest to me that it's not as heavy as the previous two. I'm going to guess it's somewhere in the like upper 8s.
I'm going to put this. So in baseball, there's the Mendoza line.
Is that different than the? Is that different from the bar?
In the
VR?
In the beer world,
what would be
the Dave Bracey line? So I think this is right at when you have to warn somebody what you're serving them. This is 9.6.
So shout out to the drinking partners, Day and Ed from who created Fresh Fest. Also the artist formerly known as Fresh Fest.
Right.
They have a rule, and
Nigel breaks that rule.
So if I give you a beer and it's over 9%, I have to tell you.
I thought it was 9.6.
I like that rule.
9.6 is the Bracey line.
Is it?
We're gonna call that the Bracey line from now on.
The Bracey line. I will hit him up and ask that question.
My personal Bracey line is probably more in the like 8% range.
So okay. So what are you going on this one? Look at
that. So I was gonna say in the upper 8. Yeah. So like 8.
And you went what?
9.6.
Actual retail ABV, 8%.
Ah, all right.
Wow.
That's right. That's right at the That's right at where
you were in there. You were kind of right there. That's
like
fine.
An imperial brown. I get it. Like it's like a regular brown is like 5%. So imperial brown. Yeah.
So Chris, as we wrap this up, I think we're like almost 2 hours in.
We're at 1 hour 48. We're fine.
Oh, you're counting?
Well, I got a little timer on the board.
There's a little timer on my screen.
Not that we really not that it matters, but what's so you've been to a lot of cities. I kind of want to go back to the Oklahoma City thing. I read the blog, and I was with you on Big Friendly. Fucking loved it.
Oh my God. That's going to be a like a memory for the year. Like at the end of the year, I always put out something about like my 5 favorite breweries that are new to me that I visited this year. And most of them like are just like out of left field. Like I don't know anything about them. I walk in and I'm like, holy shit, this is amazing. They were one of those. Yeah.
Yeah. So where else did you go in Oklahoma City? And because I'm with you, Big Friendly was fucking great, and the pizza was really good.
Oh yeah.
Who else did you like in Oklahoma City?
Fairweather Friend, which is again, Friend is in the, it's kind of funny.
Yeah.
I really like them.
They're friendly.
Wait, you know what? Yeah, they're friendly there. I thought that Stone Cloud was pretty good. I liked my brew. I'm spoiling this, but it'll be out by the time anyone's listening. Skydance is my brewery of the week in my newsletter this week. Yes, they're really great.
Former guest of the show.
Awesome. I love Skydance because fucking Jake Keys, that's my dude. He killed it on the IPA, bro.
So, the beers were amazing, and I love these like small world stories where so I have my friend I have a friend who runs Central Standard Brewing in Wichita,
Love
and
them too.
yeah, they're fantastic.
Yeah.
And I was sitting at the sitting at Skydance, and this old lady was like talking to like her two other friends that they were drinking, and one of them asked like, "Oh, so who do you like in Wichita?" She's like, "Central Standard's the best in Wichita." And I literally like get on my phone and I'm like, "Hey Ian, someone here just said that your brewery is the best in Wichita." He's like, "Get out, where are you?" And I'm like, "I'm at Skydance in OKC." He's like, "No way."
Yeah.
And they're like,
What a great
go over to her.
though.
Yeah. Oh,
What a
yeah,
great
no, that's the thing.
room.
And it like,
The
and that was the thing. It was
upstairs.
such a like, oh yeah, yeah, yeah. It was just such a like wonderful, like welcoming place to drink beer. And that was the thing. I just kind of like leaned over and I'm like, I like that you like Central Standard. And we ended up talking for a while. It turns out like her son went to high school with my friend who.
Oh no shit.
Yeah. It's a like everything's such a small world there. But
6 degrees of separation.
yeah. But
Kevin
no,
Bacon was
that brewery was like we had like my friend and I had an incredible string of breweries. So we did Skydance first. That was our first stop of the day. Then we went to Prairie OKC.
Mm-hmm.
Then we hopped in a lift and went up to, in its 4th day of operation, American Solera Edmond.
In Edmond, yes, I heard about that.
Yeah,
I'm excited.
So I was just like, this is amazing. Like we didn't go to 8 breweries that day, but we went to 3 amazing breweries that day.
Yeah. All those.
And he had never had anything from American Solera before, so he was just like blown away. Despite the fact that their beer shows up here in New York City, so as you know.
That's amazing to me how far the OKC breweries are going.
Bro, it's amazing to me how good they are. But and you know, and I was having this conversation today, and to your point, the beer laws, whatever rules, you know,
every state has crazy archaic rules.
Well, everybody, and we've talked about this, whether it be Skydance or what's his face, Lively, where
Lively was great. Oh my gosh, Lively was great too. Lively also, sorry, the thing that, so their beer was phenomenal, but the thing I will always remember most about Lively is that for some reason there was a meetup of young women cosplaying as old women when I walked in there.
What the fuck?
Yes, I like that will be the thing I remember most about Lively.
Right?
Like it was just like a bunch of like clearly younger women,
young women,
like gray hair, like wigs and things like that, and wearing like you know, grandma clothes and stuff. And I was just
like, up from Little House on the Prairie.
Yeah,
I
mean it was, and I asked them, they were like on a crawl or something, and I was just like, this is that's what awesome. I'll remember. But hey, you know what? Like that's something you don't see every day.
Did you go to Vanessa House?
Yes.
Yeah,
I enjoyed it.
Yeah,
I enjoyed it. Yeah. The vibe there was really cool too.
They learned the whole slushy sour thing from 903 in Sherman. They actually did a collab with brewery and planning, Vine Street Brewing, at Diametric, and
cool.
it was a
basketballs,
big wheels, basketballs
and body bags.
And well, you know, sometimes
it's got a good story.
Sometimes beers name themselves, and so they came up. The guys from Oklahoma City, the Diametric, and the guys from Vine Street, and it was a rainstorm,
flash flood.
And you've been to Diametric, got that pond back there.
Yeah,
that pond. I've never seen that pond get that. It backed up into the parking lot.
Oh,
wow! On the brew day,
it was a flash flood.
Yeah. And so I'm like, is that a big wheel floating in the? It was a big wheel, and there was a basketball, and I was like, what the fuck is that? Is that a body bag? It was like a 6 feet long white thing, and so that pond filled up so big, it was just going into this creek everybody looked at each other like, well, we've got the beer name. And it was funny because they had that beer at Diametric, and I bootlegged a couple of kegs down to Oklahoma City, and they served it at Vanessa's house
at their Juneteenth party. Right?
Oh yeah, it was. Yeah, they did it at the Juneteenth this past summer.
That's awesome.
But yeah, those guys. Oklahoma City. Granted.
Yeah, I want to. I want to go. I don't want to go 7 years without going back there again. Like I thought that was a really great beer.
You let me know the next time you go. We will go there, because there's so much more. There's more breweries than people realize.
Oh yeah, and that was the thing. Like it's amazing that to watch a city go from 4 breweries to like 20 breweries between visits, and to have most of those 20 breweries be really good. Like that was the other thing. I was really impressed with the quality of the beer, because I remember I remember talking with the folks at Anthem Brewing when I was there in 2015, and when they were one of the 4 breweries in town. And it seemed they're great. And when in 2015 I asked them, how many breweries do you think are just waiting in the wings for the laws to change here? Because it's clear the laws are going to change. The momentum's there. They clearly have their shit together. They're organizing to make these laws change. When do you think? How many do you think are just like waiting for the laws to change? And they said probably in OKC alone, probably 15. And there we go. We've got 20 breweries in a town that had 4 7 years ago, and that's that's what I find so fascinating about traveling around, is that every city I visit is in a different stage of their maturity as a beer city, right? Like Denver's like super mature, San Diego, despite having a lot of breweries, I mean, most of their more iconic breweries only opened in the late 90s. So they're still only in their like second generation of brewers, despite the fact that they have like 150, almost 200 breweries. And then you go to a city like, I don't know, I'm going to New Orleans in 2 weeks. And last time I was in New Orleans, there were like 4 breweries there. And, now there's like 15. Yeah. Oh, no. Yeah, I know. They're a little slow.
So I used to live in New Orleans. So I try to go to New Orleans every year. So one of my favorites was Brew Carré, which is in the Marigny, off of Frenchman Street. It's a fucking shotgun house. Tiny S tap room, and they've got a giant backyard. That's what I loved about it. Yeah. But after, bro. Yeah, it's been, we could probably do another 2 hours with you, I'm sure.
wait! I want to do this brewery roulette thing one more time. So
okay, let's go. Let's go to the tape.
A number.
Give me a number, Nigel.
Give you a number.
69. Nice.
Let's go 1520.
1520 was Zipline Brewing in Lincoln, Nebraska.
Yeah.
They make really good beer. I really enjoyed them. They were on a so something that I find myself doing in a lot of places, especially outside of the Northeast, or basically away from the coast, is I look at a map and I see where the breweries are, and I'm like, that looks walkable. I'll walk between them, not realizing there's like no sidewalks. And I'm like, I'm like walking through like, knee-high grass, like on the side of a road, so I don't get hit by cars that are going 55 miles an hour. They're like 5 feet beside me.
Don't do that.
I definitely did that on my I definitely did that on my walk from Backswing to Zipline on the west side of Lincoln, Nebraska on that trip. Lincoln, Nebraska, surprisingly good beer scene.
Great brew scene. Absolutely.
Yeah. I really like Cosmic Eye.
Cosmic Eye was very good. Yes. Yeah. So fun fact about Zipline, the first ever tap takeover they ever did was at the did you ever go to Fringe when you came to Lee Summit?
Oh yeah.
So that was the original Grains and Taps.
Oh, okay.
Back 10 years ago. The first tap takeover Zipline ever did there.
Was that?
Wait, it was there. The first Kansas City.
The original Grains?
Yes. Them and Coop. That was the first time they came to Kansas City.
I did not know that.
That's a cool, like, the North and the South coming to.
Yeah. But awesome. and the weird thing is now you don't hear anything about Coop or Zipline here.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't seen a Zipline beer in Kansas City in years.
Oh, and that's
product.
Coop as well. I know Coop's going through some things or whatever. They had big plans.
That's like one of those things in New York. We see like breweries that have like these big plans to launch here, and they make a big splash, and then they just kind of like dial back. And obviously, there's been a lot that's changed in the beer scene in the last 2 or 3 years, and a lot of breweries are pulling back their distribution to focus more locally. But it is really interesting to see how breweries kind of ebb and flow in terms of their approach to beer, and it's interesting to watch a place contract, because that can actually be when they're at their most innovative, because they're just trying to woo people locally instead of trying to just send their beer out into every market.
Yeah. So speaking of locally, did you, when you were in town or the last 2 times, did you ever go to City Barrel?
Yes, absolutely. Yep.
So how about, do you know about Beer Station? It's a great,
I know it. Believe it. This is how tuned in I am to the beer scene in Kansas City, despite having spent probably about 2 weeks of my life there total. I know exactly what you're about to talk about, and I think it's a really cool move on their part. So anyway, I'll let you talk about it.
You know what? I think it is, because I know the guys of both businesses, but and as I
let's be clear. Say it. Beer Station is buying City Barrel.
No, City Barrel.
City Barrel's buying Beer Station. Sorry, I got that back.
You're talking about 10 years ago when there was no beer bars in Kansas City, and Beer Station was it was a thing,
right?
So
it was a great place to drink.
Yeah, I got a bit verklempt about that going away.
That was surprising news for the area,
and we were there on Black Friday. So we did our whole Black Friday, let's go get the new beers. I'm like, let's go to Beer Station. Hadn't been there in a while. Took like 10 people, and then the news comes out. I'm like, oh God. And there's nothing against City Barrel. Beer Station was such a unique thing in Kansas City. There's nothing else like it. So I'm a bit verklempt.
I was at Beer Station the last time I was in KC, actually.
Oh, were you?
I went there for a Four Hands event that Jeremy Danner was doing.
Yeah. Shout out to Jeremy.
Jeremy's
former guest on the show. That's my dude.
We love you. We forgive you.
He was, by the way, the ambassador they sent to New York City for the Boulevard launch back in back when he was in his Boulevard days.
Yeah.
We had many memorable times, or not so memorable times.
That dude has had a good beer career.
He's had such a great beer career.
And it's still going.
No.
You gotta give respect to the Danner there.
There's a guy that we're talking to right now that said, no, Danner hasn't done with this motherfucker.
Wow.
Whatever. I'm sorry.
Look. He has an incredible
Danner.
beer career for someone who's actually gotten paid by a brewery.
But you know what?
There we go.
I mean, let's keep it real. You would do this for free. I mean, I guess you're doing it for free.
I am doing it for free. That's the thing. Yeah.
You know what? We're going to.
That brings us to a point.
What point?
Everybody, go sign up for the newsletter.
Yeah,
because I'm sure there's a little bit of revenue somewhere, right?
Well, tell people where they can find you.
Where can they get the newsletter?
So brewyork.substack.com. is where you can find the newsletter. Sign up for it if you want. Just read through it if you want. I mean,
sign up, folks. Give him the numbers.
Sign up. Yeah. Look, here's the thing. Eventually, if you have any interest in visiting New York City, you're eventually going to visit New York City, and it's nice to have that newsletter in your inbox so you know what's going on in the beer scene here when you do eventually come. But also, I write about the breweries I visit and the cities I go to. Yeah. So, you'll in 2 weeks you'll hear about my travels to. I said New Orleans, but before I go to New Orleans, I'm going to Dayton, Ohio. Wait,
we've got a suggestion.
Oh my God. Okay. Awesome. Okay. All right. Yeah. I'm grabbing my pen. Yeah. I'm literally grabbing my pen to take notes.
Alematic.
Go
to Alematic. Okay. Yes. Okay. It's right outside Dayton. Tell them we sent you. If you go back by the bathrooms, there's a Beers with Nigel sticker right there.
I like that. I always look for stickers from my podcasting friends, by beer podcasting.
This part of this is we decided to road trip this year.
Yeah, we drove to Pittsburgh. Yeah,
so we stopped outside of Dayton, and we walk into Alematic, and we started and they behind the bar. I know you guys. We met you at Barrel and Flow last year.
Yeah,
and it's one of the owners from Alematic.
Yeah. So the beautiful thing about all their beers are based off, because obviously Alematic, Nas.
Yep.
They're one of the best flight boards ever. It's a fucking turntable.
It's badass.
Oh, that's great. Oh,
and all their beers
I try not to order flights, but I'm going to order a flight there.
Absolutely.
You need to order a flight
just to take the picture.
Yeah.
And then all their beers are either hip hop titles or R&B titles.
Oh, that's so
and
great.
Their beers are fabulous. And it's in a weird shopping center, just like that shit in Fayetteville.
Yeah. It's a weird little, and just like outside of town, kind of the suburbs.
Yeah, it's a weird location, but it's a great vibe.
Their merch is fantastic.
Oh, their merch is great.
That's awesome.
I would probably say that's the most merch I've ever bought at a brewery.
Yeah, that's true. Ooh. I think we had a couple flights and a lot of merch.
Yeah.
That has me thinking, what's the brewery that I've bought the most merch from? Oh,
yeah.
Believe it or not, it's not even one local. I did for my 2000th brewery. I did it during the pandemic, so I went alone and joined all my friends on Zoom, because for my 1000th brewery, all my friends flew into Austin, Texas, and we went to Jester.
What?
Yeah,
what the?
That's awesome.
Yeah, which is amazing.
Okay, I hate you?
Did I mention that for my 2500th brewery, my friends flew in because I timed my 2500th brewery to be on my 40th birthday?
So when are you going to hit 3,000?
So this is a good question. Probably next spring. It's getting closer, and I'm trying to decide if I'm going to power through and try to get to 3,000 before I. God, this is just going to make everyone even more jealous of me and make me sound like I'm begging. I'm not. My company grants me a sabbatical after 10 years of service.
Oh.
So I'm taking my sabbatical. What's that?
Are they hiring?
We're always hiring. I mean, except that I was grandfathered in for the sabbatical, and they don't have that anymore.
Skills. Yeah, I got soft skills.
Yeah.
So I'm taking my sabbatical, and I'm taking it in late March and early April, and going to New Zealand and Australia for hop harvest season, and going to a fresh hop beer festival in Wellington, New Zealand, and in Tasmania. So I'm
I
I'm
think
going to drink all the fresh hop beers.
You're just now hating him?
Really? I've been hating for the last 2 hours.
I mean, I was holding off. I'm not going to judge him too much,
bro. I knew.
But now, at this point,
when I told Chris, I was like, "You need to be on the podcast." I'm like, "There's going to be a lot of hate."
So, how many of your friends can you get to meet you in New Zealand for your 3,000th brewery?
Exactly 0, which is why I'm probably going to try to do it before I go to New Zealand and Australia. But of the iconic American breweries, the question is where where should I do it? And then the added challenge here is it's going to be probably March if I do this. So I want to do it somewhere warm. And unfortunately, a lot of the like iconic breweries I haven't been to, like the more of the like standout ones, like I haven't been to Bell's, I haven't been to Toppling Goliath.
Really?
Three Floyds doesn't have a tap room, so
I feel like it should be some obscure brewery. Like screw making it one of the big ones,
bro. I'm gonna throw
like you need number 3,000 needs to be like some freaking
I've got something
rural area that nobody's been to.
No, I'm gonna give him a brewery to go to. So shout out to my boy Nick, Spencer, Iowa
Project,
the Iowa Beer Project.
Iowa Beer
that
Project.
dude is, yes, he's killing it. He was a Kansas City guy. He was in the ZZ Hops homebrew club. He's the only guy in the club that did not open a brewery here. He decided to go to Spencer, Iowa, up by Lake Okoboji. and he's 2 years in and he's killing it. The only brewery up there.
I love the little like the hidden gems, you know, like that's so like my 2000th was a place called Blackwoods, which is in Marquette, Michigan, and Black Rock. Yeah. It was like I was at brewery like 1997 and I was going up to the UP in Michigan and I just asked everyone, I'm like, what's the best brewery up here? And they're like, oh yeah, no, it's Black Rocks. And I'm like, okay, fine.
My most random brewery ever is in Eureka Springs, Arkansas. Got a hold.
Oh. Everyone told me about them. No, I didn't go, and everyone in Northwest Arkansas told me about them when I was there, and I'm like,
so Dave was a brewer somewhere in New York. Dave and Wendy, that's who owned them.
I remember.
Eureka is a great town. It's a great little tiny town. It's an oasis in whatever Northwest Arkansas would be.
Yeah,
right.
Yep.
I could drop that brewery. I tell people I could drop that brewery in Kansas City. They'd be top 3 all day.
Oh, Dave! Oh my gosh! Yeah, sorry, I had to look that up. Dave worked for Empire Brewing, which was
yes.
Like they were kind of like one of the pioneers of beer in upstate New York, and Yep.
Dave and Wendy. So the fun fact before we wrap this up. So Dave and Wendy's from Oklahoma or whatever. Long story short, they got hooked up. Their friends like, oh, you got to go to Eureka Springs, right? And they went and they hung out at Eureka Springs, and the Got a Hold name. They said Eureka Springs got a hold of us. That's how they got the name. It's crazy.
I love stories like that. I love stories like that.
And it's literally stupid. Not a big facility. They've got the biggest backyard ever. Stage, Adirondack chairs, a trail. They have like acres behind the brewery. It's beautiful.
See, that's the thing we don't have in New York. So
yes,
space.
Yes,
space is at a premium. Yeah.
So look, when you go to Eureka, you let me know. I'll come meet you.
All right. Love it.
There's several other really random places in Eureka
I feel like he should let us plan his 3,000th.
Okay, so here's the challenge. You're also going to have to get all my friends to agree to come meet me at my 3,000th, which
we're on it.
How many friends are we talking about?
Where we at?
Like 7 or 8.
Oh, that's easy.
We got you.
We're like Julie from the Love Boat, cruise directors. Hey, Chris, where can people find you on social medias, man?
So I'm on Instagram as brew_York. This is the first time I've said this on a podcast. I'm on TikTok as Brew York.
I saw that.
Wow.
Yeah. So
do you do little dances?
Super quick. I don't do any dancing. I promise you there's no dancing. There will never be any dancing on my TikTok. But
don't say never.
It has really yeah, you're right. It's true. Get a few beers in me and there's a potential. Yeah.
You right beers, you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah. But like it really has helped me to focus on like the visual aspect of breweries too, and it's really fun to like. I feel like I'm looking at breweries through a new lens since I started TikTok, because like I'm looking at what's really like pretty in the brewery, like what makes a good like visual, like a video aspect of it. Substack is brewyork.substack.com. That's where you can find me.
Cool.
And also brewyork.com is still a destination. If you go to the brewery guide or the events calendar there, you can find everything that's going on in New York City and where to find the good breweries and beer bars. So it's still there.
That's awesome.
I feel like you're the type of guy, if somebody sent you a message, you'd be like, yeah, go here. I feel like you'd be like, yeah.
No, honestly, if you find me on social media and you have questions about a beer city and want recommendations, I will happily make them. I love it. It's like someone described me as the beer Sherpa. And I feel like that's it's very true in New York. Like I love to like people who have like followed me on social media are just like, hey, I'm coming to New York. Where should I go? I'm like, when are you in town? I'll take you to a few breweries and tell you, the right places to drink and everything. But like, it's really just like I am happy to be a recommendation engine, because like the reason I travel and do these things is so I can share experiences and stories, and it's what I like to do. So
he's such a liar,
because beer is for everyone.
No, you're doing that because you're having a fun.
I'm having a great time doing it, but it's meaningless if I can't actually like do something with it, right? Like it really is.
Fair point.
Like, I can go to like all 20 breweries.
You're still having You're still having a good time.
Oh, for sure. No, there's no doubt about it.
Dude is going to hit 3,000 breweries in a few months.
Yeah.
I mean, just think about that for a second. Nigel, just think about that. In a few months, he's going to hit 3,000 breweries.
I feel like we can get Chris as like a correspondent.
Yes. Senior brewery correspondent, Chris.
You've been
there's my journalism background finally coming back to me.
Yeah, we're gonna there's a whole thing. You like and look, our pay is just as shitty as what you're getting paid now.
Well, not next year.
If I'm going into the brewery trenches, I better have like one of those like flak jackets and helmets.
We got you.
Going into the brewery trenches.
You stay a brewery shirt, you'll be fine.
Yeah, fine.
Brother, appreciate it, man. It's been a great conversation.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been so much fun.
We'll have to do it again, because I'm sure once we get done here, we'll be like,
shit, this is like 2 hours long.
What the fuck? So apparently you can't hang up yet, because
you got to hang out for a little bit after we.
He's got to upload situation.
Yeah, so you're going to hang out and talk a little bit more. But first, we're going to tell you, Nigel, did you know that you can listen to the Beers with Nigel podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or any of your favorite podcast apps? You can even do
damn Alexas.
Hey Alexa, play that Beers with Nigel podcast.
Hey Alexa, let me holler at you.
We just talked about him dancing. I got to tell you this story.
What's that?
I didn't have the video going, but on another podcast earlier today, I interviewed Santa Claus, and he danced.
The actual Santa Claus.
And he danced.
Where, from the North Pole?
From the North Pole. He came to visit. He flew down, came to visit me.
He did?
Look.
Chris is like, what the fuck?
I got podcast game, Nigel.
I know you do.
Matter of fact, I got so much game, I can do this.
You've been listening to Beers with Nigel, a show about beer and other stuff, hosted by Nigel Woodbury and that other guy, Nick Parker. Beers with Nigel is poured for you by Dire Oil Graphics, providing bumper-to-bumper graphic design, promo products, and print services. Find them at direoil.com. Beers with Nigel is a proud member of the Fredcast Network and is available on all of your favorite podcast flavors. Find Beers with Nigel on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and ask Alexa to play the Beers with Nigel podcast.